Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tonight in Haddonfield. I'm Sean, and I'm joined, as always, by Dean. How's it going, man? We got a loaded show tonight. Obviously, we had some. I don't want to say things necessarily come to light. We're not here to like confirm anything tonight by any means, but I do feel like for the first time since there was an announcement of this Halloween Miramax rights deal that there might be some grains of truth starting to flow through the cracks, and we're starting to maybe, just maybe, see who might be involved in this, what I would call a very convoluted um, attempt at a cinematic universe, as they word it. How's it going, man? Lots to get into.
Yeah, excited to kind of see what might be in the works a little bit. Um, if there's any kind of creative, you know, rumor floating around, anything of that sort, because I'm dying to know who's going to be working on this thing.
Well, in our, let's see, where is it? In our third topic tonight, we're going to be discussing the Halloween series and who might be making it. And we'll dive into that. It's a rumor, um, but and a little bit of us connecting the dots too, and some no comments instead of outright rejections, and so on has led me to anyways believe that we have an idea anyways who might be doing some work on this thing. Whether we're right or wrong, that is still TBD, to be determined. But it's gonna be a fun show as we go through tonight. Dude, I've been out of the loop the last few days. I've been on the road a ton. So I didn't hear about this one until a couple hours before showtime. But I guess online over the last few days, there was a report out there that Matt Reeves' sequel to his Batman movie, The Batman, was canceled. Yeah. and and
What?
I'm like, wait a minute. We're talking about, one of the more widely successful comic book movies of the last several years, not just financially, but critically as well.
Mhm.
And also something that's not super divisive amongst fans, which is really hard to do these days.
Yeah.
So I was kind of baffled, man. I didn't understand it. And that was debunked pretty quickly. Obviously, not quick enough, but by James Gunn, he said, no, don't listen to stupid internet rumors. And that's good because, like, I don't want to spend too much time on this. The Batman 2 for me, anyways, I believe it's slated for, I think it's like October 3rd, 2025 or something like that. Uh,
Mhm.
October of 2025, anyways.
Yeah.
It's probably, as it stands today now, will there be a Halloween film in 2025? If you would have asked me a month ago, I would have said you were delusional. If you ask me today, I would say I think there's a possibility, which is kind of crazy. But if there's no Halloween film in 2025, then I would suggest that the Batman 2 is probably my most, or the film I'm most excited for in that year.
Yeah. It's definitely a good one. So hearing that there's a rumor it may have been canceled, that's a little mind blowing to me. It did way too well in order to get canceled. So thank God they jumped on that and debunked that. Um, and yeah, I would say next year is already a packed year. I keep seeing little hints of things that have been either in development or in the works popping back up, stuff that we kind of forgot about when catching up with everything else that's going to be coming out. So I think I saw a poster for the I Know What You Did Last Summer, reboot or sequel, whatever that's going to be, and the Black Phone 2, also both slated for sometime next year. So we've been saying it's going to be a stacked year already, and it just kind of keeps building up.
Yeah, I don't know what leads to a. I mean, let me rephrase that. I don't know what leads to a rumor like the Batman 2 being canceled and then it gaining so much traction. When I went back and looked at, people that were talking about it the last few days, There was more than but I couldn't figure out where it originated from. I tried to track it, couldn't figure it out, and thankfully James Gunn came out and debunked that, which is good.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I can take any more losses to my fandom in the
Yeah.
next 24 hours. It's been a rough 24 hours. Apologies if the internet is a little wonky tonight. I think we're okay right now, but I'm not sure. It's showing me low bars. So we'll get through this as quickly as we can at least to the topics that we know most of you are waiting for tonight, which is the Halloween series, who's making it, and Halloween Returns versus Halloween 2018. Also, Braden Timmons, the Haddonfield's Last Nightmare Part 1. I don't know if it was a teaser or clip. I don't know how he would word that, but his Indiegogo is going live for that soon. And I saw the clip. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but I'm going to try to pull it up later. And I got to tell you, man, that is just a little teaser for the end of the show. That is shot really, really well. Like the quality of the shots is remarkable.
Yeah, doesn't look like a fan film. I'll say that much. Yeah, I got a chance to check it out a couple times. I think I went back real quick and gave it a watch today, so I could be ready for tonight. And yeah, hopefully we can pull it up in a little bit here and show the audience.
Lee chimes in with a $10 super chat. Thanks, Lee. He says for the channel, it would be a good idea to release a new Halloween film in 2028 for the 50th anniversary. Yeah, so there's still the possibility that might be the first time we get a Halloween movie. But there seems to be, at least there seems to be this indication that it might be a movie that leads into a series. And again, we talked about this a little bit last week. Logistically speaking, it makes way more sense to start with a movie and then move into a TV series like the Batman, which, by the way, I laugh at the Batman 2 being canceled, but meanwhile, the Penguin's coming out on Max this year. And
Yeah.
it had that. There was supposed to be the Gotham thing that did get canceled, but then they went and did a audio drama series, and so like they got a lot of stuff just spawning off of that one movie. And I think that is their hope for Halloween, but on a smaller scale here. I think that's harder to do when you start with a TV series. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if we find out that it's going to be a movie before TV series. But we'll definitely dive into that a bit as we go. Let's kick this thing off though with movie countdown. I have no idea what Dean has this week for movie countdown or show and tell. So Dean, take it away.
All right. So I wanted to stick to horror for movie countdown because show and tell is going to branch out from horror for this week. So I'm kind of looking at my shelves last night, and I was in the mood for like an 80s slasher, and decided to throw something on, and figured it's kind of a movie that doesn't get talked about all that much. So what I'm going to cover here tonight is 1981 camp slasher. It's considered sort of a Friday the 13th ripoff. I wouldn't go as far to say that, but you can see similarities in it. It was released by Miramax, and it's the first Miramax film that they had done. You got special effects done by Tom Savini. Came out 1 week after Friday the 13th Part 2. It's got a decent cast of characters. They're likable, but they're not very memorable, with the exception of one or two of them. This one's right in your wheelhouse, Sean. It features a young Jason Alexander. I believe it was his film debut. So you got George Costanza. Yeah, so you got George in there. What else do we got here? The score is very, very 80s. Cinematography is pretty well done. Very good use of POV. And this is known for its infamous raft massacre scene. And that movie is The Burning. I have a lot of fun with this one. Like I said, 80s camp slasher. Takes place in the summer. Obviously set at a summer camp. The plot, it's basically based off of a New York City like urban legend of the Cropsey maniac killer. So the story is basically this caretaker of a camp gets horribly burnt in like a prank gone wrong. So it's a group of the campers. They kind of want to play this prank on this the groundskeeper, And yeah, Flicks nails it. The raft scene's great. But they want to play a prank on the groundskeeper. So while he's asleep one night in his cabin, they kind of gather outside his window. They set up. It looks like I don't know if it's a human skull head. It looks like it, but it's a skull head, and they put two small candles in the eyes. And then kid sneaks out and the rest of them start banging on the window to wake him up. And he wakes up and he sees this thing next to his bed, and it frightens him and catches him off guard, to where he then knocks it accidentally onto his bed, and then the bed catches fire, his legs catch fire. The fire just starts kind of enraging throughout the cabin, and hits a gas can, and then the whole thing kind of bursts and explodes, and then that sets the whole thing on fire. So he goes running out, and they don't know what to do to help him, so he kind of just runs a little bit off screen and jumps in the river to kind of put himself out, and he ends up in the hospital. He's in the hospital for about 5 years. They try to do skin grafts on him, and it doesn't quite work. So he's eventually released, and then that's when he decides to go back to not the same camp, but a close by. I think it's one that's like across the river from the original camp. But he basically wants to go back and get his revenge on the young teenagers and the demographic of people who kind of did this to him. So yeah, it starts at Camp Blackfoot, and it ends up at I forget the name of the second camp. I thought I had it written down here, but I don't. But yeah, he goes back to this camp, and then you do find out that one of the counselors at the newer camp was one of the kids involved in the original accident. So that's kind of like the premise for part of his revenge. As he goes back, he tracks this guy down, and by the end of the movie, they kind of have like a final altercation, and it ends in a mine shaft, kind of like the original My Bloody Valentine. So it's definitely a fun watch. It's basically about a disfigured burn victim who just comes back to a summer camp to get his revenge against a group of campers and young teens that did this to him a few years before. So yeah, that's going to wrap up Movie Countdown with The Burning from 1981.
Turns out Movie Countdown works better when the guy who's supposed to start the countdown starts the countdown. Which I did not, but I enjoyed that. I didn't even know that existed, man. I gotta check that out just on the merit that George Costanza's in it, aka Jason Alexander. That's wild. I can't imagine him in a movie like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is he in
full head?
Is he in it for long, or
yeah,
is he?
Yeah, he's in the whole thing. Yeah, he's pretty much the whole runtime. Don't think he's killed off. He might be, but from what I recall, I gave it a quick watch last night. I think he lasts the whole thing. So yeah, it's a fun watch. It's definitely a good summer camp slasher.
I like the cover art.
Yeah, that's the original poster. So this is a 4K from Scream Factory. So with the 4Ks, they've been going back and doing original poster art, which is cool, because then when you order them from them, you get a 18 by 24 poster with it of the original art. So you kind of get yourself some old school movie posters, which are always fun.
So I think our chat loves when you do the whole, whether it's Movie Countdown, and I know they love show and tell, because I'm flicking through some messages yesterday. I'm about 3.5 hours away from home, and I'm just dreading the drive home. And so I'm like flicking through our YouTube updates, and I took time. I replied to a couple of people anyways. But one of them was like they're just raving about your movie collection and show and tell and how much they love you. And they're like, awesome. They're like, oh yeah, hi Sean, to you too.
That's funny.
I mean, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. That's cool. Yeah, this was like a segment that we kind of last minute just decided, like, hey, let's kind of add something into the show. So I'm glad everybody enjoys it, and I can share this collection with all of you.
Nice. All right, let's dive into it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna break for about 30 seconds, and then we're gonna come back with the Halloween series and who might be making it. And I can say this much. I'll leave you with this before we come back from this short little break. we do believe that we know someone who is writing something Halloween related. Now, what that something is, we don't have details on, but we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the possibility of that being, in fact, the Halloween cinematic universe. We'll be right back. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, slash the notification bell, and all that good shit. Big thanks to our patrons and our channel sponsors. Without you, we wouldn't be here. Be right back. All righty, we're back. Sorry about that. I didn't want to have a sneezing fit into the microphone. So let's dive into this. First of all, I want to take a second, Dean, and compare what we know, anyways, about the Halloween. The only thing that's been announced right now is a series, but they did say the intention for it to cross over into big screen events. Miramax won the bidding war for the Halloween TV rights. They also co-own the film rights. We spoke about that last week. And now, anyways, here we are. And it's a little bit of dot connecting, but I want to preface this by saying no one go to social media saying that we said that this is definitely happening. Please, for the love of God, the last thing I need or we need is, trolls just fucking saying that we said this and we didn't. So I'm going to preface this saying this is a rumor. You can take whatever stock into it you want. We're going to lay out the evidence for you, and you can decide if there's something to it or not. So I get talking to one of our sources, and they were at Halloween 45, as was another person who I don't have permission to name drop this guy on the channel. If he's in the chat and he would like me to, he is more than welcome to speak up, but I don't want to just throw his name out there and have him not be okay with it. But two different people said that they heard, and one directly from the guy, that a certain past Halloween writer was working on new Halloween projects. Excuse me. I want to take you back to last year. We covered all sorts of content on the channel. We talked about how we thought that there was Halloween novels coming. There were re-releases of, I think, H1 and H2. Was it H1 and H2 or just two different versions of H1?
I believe it was two different versions of H1 that I am actually currently still waiting on. I forgot I pre-ordered that, and that was supposed to ship this month, and it should be hopefully showing up pretty soon. So, yeah.
So we have that. Okay, we talked about, and then that came to light. We talked all year long, off and on, throughout various shows on this channel, about a Halloween TV series was likely coming. That came. A bunch of other people had that too. I'm sure Bloody Disgusting was sitting on it forever. But we also mentioned something that did not come to light, and that was more Halloween comics. Now, I'm going to ask the chat, those of you that are Halloween fans out there, and I'm assuming you are if you're tuning in right now, right?
Yeah.
How many people have ever heard of either Halloween Night Dance or Halloween The First Death of Laurie Strode? I'm just curious in the chat. how many of you have heard of those projects? Because I imagine the diehards know exactly what they are, but there's probably some casual Halloween fans that have never even heard of those projects.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to circle back to those. But anyways, we hear from a couple different people that someone is working on new Halloween material. I asked flat out, Dean, I told you this. I asked, can you comment if you're working on the new Halloween series in development with Miramax? And I literally got LOL, no comment, but thanks for asking. So not an outright denial.
Right.
And then I reached out to someone who's going to be on this channel very, very soon, a Halloween author of sorts. People might have been referencing his books in the chat before we went live. And actually, one of the comments that's in here, where is it here? Anybody read Taking Shape 2? I'm curious if it's worth the length. The unused scripts are interesting, but that's a huge investment of time to read a book about them. Well, try reading the book about them or listening to the book about them and then actually going and reading the scripts afterwards. That's an even bigger investment of time.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? In more cases than not, it's actually worth your time.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're going to have Dustin McNeil on this channel soon. He no commented as well. And the person in question that I'm referring to that we believe is writing something Halloween related. In fact, I'll go one step further and say I will 99% guarantee you that this person is definitely writing something for Malacca Cat. And as far as I know, it's Halloween. The question is what? Is it more comics like we heard last year? We didn't hear his name attached. Or keeping in mind that the WGA writer's strike ended, and part of the new agreement that's in place is here's the difference between Halloween and Crystal Lake, which is set to hit your TVs, I believe, next year. The difference is when Crystal Lake was announced, you didn't get a whole writer's room announced. That's not the way things were done. You were given who the showrunner was, Brian Fuller, or showrunner is Brian Fuller, which I'm still super excited about. When the Halloween deal was announced, we got nothing. We didn't get a showrunner. We didn't get who's going to write, who's going to direct. Very tight-lipped. And we've talked about on this channel how when you make a bid for those rights, it's not just a financial bid, it's a creative bid as well. And the author that I'm long-windedly getting to, his name is Stephen Hutchinson. If you haven't yet, Google Stephen Hutchinson, better known as Steph Hutchinson. Is he writing on the new Halloween TV series / movie / universe? I don't know. That's the truth. I don't know. I would say this, though. I wouldn't rule it out. He has a close relationship with Malacca Cat. This isn't, hiring someone that you barely know to make a pitch. This is you going back to someone that you know very well, who's had experience in the franchise, not to mention experience in several different areas of the franchise. He wrote Halloween, The First Death of Laurie Strode, where you had 2 of 3 parts came out. The third one was never released due to a distribution issue. Halloween Night Dance, which a lot of people love. Those are very expensive comics to get your hands on because they don't print them anymore, and they're all in the secondary market. And we're talking $500-$600 for the set. So they're worth a lot of money. But the thing that makes this more interesting, man, is you and I have been going back over the Taking Shape audiobook anyways. And I happened to poke my head in. I didn't know what way we were going to go after Halloween Returns, which we're going to get to in a bit here. And I was looking at Halloween 3D, and I don't know why, I just clicked on it and decided to listen to it. Probably haven't listened to it ever. I read it when it first came out. And whose name comes up? It literally. Yeah. So the stuff that I just discussed off the top happened before I went back and listened to this Halloween 3D stuff. And Halloween 3D was something that was compromised by, I believe it's Patrick Lussier, and I forget the other guy's name. They did My Bloody Valentine 3D. it was going to be essentially a part 3 to Rob Zombie's movie, and then it changed drastically. Those guys left. I believe the story goes the Weinsteins weren't going to have the money to be able to produce the movie. So then Malaka Cad I believe Steph Hutchinson actually approached Malaka Cad. Todd Farmer, thank you. Steph Hutchinson approached Malaka Cad about writing his own take on it. So he tackles it. And I'm telling you, even if you're not a fan of Rob Zombie's movies, do yourself a favor and go read about Steph Hutchinson's Halloween 3D. Go, and you know what? I don't know. Let me see. I just want to pull something up here for a second. But Dean, from what we said so far, what are your thoughts? I don't want to put my foot in my mouth before I double check.
Yeah. No, it sounds good. I that's probably one I want to tackle next, because I've always been a little bit curious about Halloween 3D. I knew it was somewhat going to tie into Rob Zombie's 1 and 2, and then I heard something that it was going to be kind of like an in canon sequel, but pretty different at the same time. So that's always kind of intrigued me a little bit, as far as like it's an interesting take to be a continuation of those two, but then kind of drift off and go your own direction and do something a little different at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely an interest of mine. I'll have to jump on the Taking Shape 2 audiobook that I have, and I'll have to give that a listen. And then I'll also have to track down that script right there. You may have sent it to me already, but that might be one that we should probably get into next.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is something we cover on next week's episode, just out of the possibility that Steph Hutchinson, regardless if he's making new comics, whether they're finding a way to complete the first Death of Laurie Strode from years ago, or whether he's one of the writers that's involved with the writer's room on the new Halloween project. And that's my bet, honestly, is I do believe, if I had to guess, that he is involved on some level, simply because of his familiarity with Malaka Cad. There's a relationship there. It's someone Malaka trusts. But let me tell you a little. I told Dean this story the other day. I want to tell our audience the story today. Also, the script here, I believe, is just the Farmer Lucier version. I don't know if Hutchinson's version is out there, but it is covered in Taking Shape. So at the very least, that's definitely one you have to listen to. I think it's, again, close to about an hour long. But anyways, cliff notes here. We'll dive into it more next week. He decides to go a route that you wouldn't think you'd pursue following Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Michael Myers is active and alive in his version, with no explanation as to how he survived the events of the second movie, which I think is okay sometimes, because over-explaining things, becomes a pain in the ass, and it can really make things convoluted and messy. But his story revolves around Brackett. Brad Dourif's Brackett. Brad Dourif would have been returning as basically the lead in the film. And it's a whole, it's a Halloween film essentially centered around Brackett and what he has, lost, and where his mindset is. And it's just, they go a route that you wouldn't expect, but it feels more grounded and gritty than Rob Zombie's movies, if that makes sense. Not as gory. Feels a little more like a traditional Halloween movie. And Steph Hutchinson also doesn't like happy endings. He's someone, when he does a horror project or a horror story, he lives for the dark ending, the bad guys winning, and those films are usually pretty good. But yeah, it's definitely worth diving into. It's a Brackett-centered story, and we're going to dive into it next week, I think, unless something breaking happens between now and then. But the interesting part to this story is Malaka Cad apparently loved it. He was over the moon about it. They wanted to go forward with it, and it was Steph Hutchinson, not Cad, not any of the other studios involved, not any of the executives sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. It was the writer himself, Steph Hutchinson, that said, you know what? I'm not liking where this story's going. He's being critical of his own work, just saying
Mhm.
it's not at a point I like. I don't like that we're continuing from other films, because his film is really done in a way, even though it's an obsessed bracket in it, that you don't really need the other two films. And one could argue the way it's apparently written. Again, I haven't read it myself. I've only listened to Taking Shape 2 portion of this. But he explains it that really you could have perceived this as being bracket from the original Halloween movie, even
Yeah.
the way it's written. So I like that he had the self-awareness to go, you know what, this is just not where I want it. And I'm going to pull out. So he pulled out. It's also noted in Taking Shape 2, which was released, I believe, the same year as, no, sorry, the year before Halloween Kills. I think Taking Shape 2 came out. It sort of ended up being the, okay, well, you're not getting Halloween Kills because of the pandemic, but here's Taking Shape 2 this year, and you'll get Halloween Kills next year. Obviously unrelated. Taking Shape 2 is done by Travis Mullins and Dustin McNeil. But I think the fact that when you dive into Taking Shape 2, all the content that's in there, he being Dustin says during it that Steph Hutchinson is currently working on unknown projects. Says it right in the audiobook, right in the actual book. Unknown projects with Malaka Cad. This is only a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying this is the exact same thing he's working on today. Simply saying there's a history of these guys working together. The First Death of Laurie Strode, Halloween Night Dance. I'm pretty sure there's other Halloween literature he's had a hand in. He took a swing at Halloween 3D. This is a guy that has experience with the franchise, but more importantly, this is a guy who cares about the franchise, cares about the legacy of Michael Myers, and doesn't think that the character should be mistreated or misused. And coming off of Halloween Ends, regardless of what you think of that movie, to me, that is the type of guy that you want. Maybe he doesn't have the screenwriting credits to be the guy behind the project. But if you want a voice in that room that is going to look out for what's best in terms of the franchise itself, I can't think of a better place to start. I honestly can't wait for you to dive into that, man, and talk about it more next week.
Yeah. So I that's everything I've heard. I can give like a big thumbs up. That's definitely the kind of person that you want in charge of some type of creativity. And the fact that he kind of took a look at his work and figured, you know what, I don't fully like the direction that this is going, and let me kind of cut it off there. That says a lot, because you have a lot of writers that would probably kind of just power through something and move forward, and maybe not take that second look, and that, you know, and make that decision. So to hear something like that, it kind of gives you the idea that it's something that could be in really good hands, and is more so worried about giving us like a quality product over just kind of throwing something together and getting it out there just to take advantage of that, you know, that Halloween IP, and just to, you know, hoping for the best that it's going to pull money just based off the name. So that's you know, something really, really good in my book that hopefully kind of comes to light and gets further expanded on. Oh, Sean, I think you're still muted.
He's basically, you know, to sort of encapsulate everything regarding this is there's still to this day has been no official announcement on who the showrunner is for the Halloween series. There's been no official announcement on if a movie will come first or afterwards. There's no official announcement on hardly anything other than Miramax have the rights. And I'm telling you, they don't go purchase the rights, let it sit in a corner and go, so what are we going to do after paying all this money? That's not the way this works, people. So, you know, just again, we're connecting some dots. It's a rumor for now. And hey, you know what? If all he ends up doing is either writing a new original Halloween novel or is going to work on new comics or finish old ones, I'm for it. Give me good quality Halloween material. I've read all those comics, the Night Dance ones and the first Death of Laurie Strode ones that were released years ago at my cousin's. He has them,
Mhm.
and I remember really enjoying them. Also, I think he might have, I don't know if anybody in the chat knows this, but I think he might have wrote a one-shot comic for Halloween that I don't know if it came with the 25 Years of Terror DVD set or something else, but he
Mm.
wrote a one-shot comic, a couple of them I actually believe, and one of them focused around Dr. Loomis's son David Loomis.
Oh,
Uh, so that's a thing too, not a fan theory, an actual thing. So this
oh,
is also a guy that has had experience, whether it's writing for the legacy characters or writing for offspring of the legacy characters. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
yeah.
What do you think, dude? He doesn't have much in the way of screenwriting credits, so
Mhm.
the idea of him being like the showrunner is highly unlikely. But could he be someone who's been working closely with Malaka Cad and Miramax to shape something? I think it's possible. Again, I'll take more Steph Hutchinson any day of the week as long as he has the self awareness that he's already shown. I think that's what you need in a case like this, especially coming off Halloween ends. Like the
Mhm.
last thing this franchise can have is something as divisive as Halloween ends. Whether
Yeah.
you're pro Halloween ends or whether you hate it, whether you love the series when it comes out or whether you don't, it just cannot be as divisive as the last one, or else you run into just massive problems. Take
Yeah.
a look at The Exorcist. There's now no bloody clue what happens next with that, and it's
Nope.
being looked at as a potential huge financial loss for them.
Hmm. Yeah. I think just hearing, the little bits that I've heard so far tonight, at least the writing creativity sounds like it's there. So like you said, if he's not quite like a showrunner, or even like a head writer of something else, at least he's kind of there to kind of give his input, along with, maybe another creative, and they can kind of team up on something, and at least focus on giving us a good quality product. Because also, like you said, we can't go down the road of Halloween ends again. It's too much of a risk. Um, I get it. There's a small portion of the fan base that kind of welcomes it and enjoys it, and that's all good and well for the fan base that does. But overall, this is a business, and money's on the table. There's money to be made. That's the whole reason this thing is in the works in the first place. So you have to take that into account, and you can't just throw anything out there at the wall and hope that it does, okay. It's got to be something that's going to be financially, you know, good at the end of the day as well. So, so yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed that some more details on this come out, and we get some updates. So hopefully,
Yeah, I mean, sooner or later, we're gonna get something official come out, and if not
hmm,
official, we'll get it from one of those big Hollywood trade scoopers that are far more connected than
yeah,
small or even big YouTube channels. So, again, I strongly encourage everybody to pay attention to what's going on with Jeff Snyder. He's the guy that breaks a lot of this stuff, and we'll see what happens. I'm all for Halloween content as long as it's good, and I'm for more Steph Hutchinson for sure.
yeah,
We're gonna get to Halloween returns versus Halloween 2018 here shortly. It's my favorite segment of the week because Dean gets to show me all the things that I don't have.
okay. All right. I'm gonna take it away here for a minute because it looks like Sean's connection's kind of going a little bit. Might be back on track now, but um, I covered horror in a movie countdown this week because I was again looking through my stuff and not quite sure about where I should go. So we're gonna step outside the box a little bit, and I'm gonna cover a company that I've mentioned before. But this is a little bit of a different release, especially for them. It's 80s sort of action, classic movie, Patrick Swayze. This comes from Vinegar Syndrome, and I have their VSU Ultimate Edition of Roadhouse. Now, simply not covering this just for the movie itself. If you've seen Roadhouse, it's basically a bar bouncer who comes in to resolve the issues in a problematic bar. So it's just fun. It's a lot of fight scenes, a lot of action. Um, typical 80s action stuff. But the main reason I wanted to cover this is this edition right here, this packaging. This is like top tier that you get from Vinegar Syndrome. So this is their VSU line. It's basically kind of their top of the line outside of a box set. It's pretty premium. You have a whole outer hard case here. You got your name on the spines, and you got a nice image, both front and back. The front cover art is just incredible. The way that they did that there. The next thing I love about these boxes is the front clasp here. Opens up, and if you guys can hear it, I'll bring it towards my mic. If you heard the snap, it's a magnetic clasp box. So a little bit different than you get from some other companies. So it has a magnetic closure, which is pretty cool. Gives you more of a premium feel. So we'll get into the box here. And like I said, again, these guys cover artwork inside, out, front, and back. They just do a phenomenal job with stuff like this. So you have your movie over here, your inside art here. We are going to pop this out. Don't want to drop this. This is your 4K case. Nice Vinegar Syndrome slipcover, front and back artwork as well. We'll set that down for a second. We'll go back in the box. Of course, we get a booklet. Not much going on the back of this one, but nice image of Patrick Swayze on the front there. Typical stuff in here, interviews, artwork, info about the movie, all kinds of fun stuff. So we'll come back to that in a minute. And then you just get the name of the bar from the movie on the inside of the box here. So, this is like cream of the crop release from Vinegar Syndrome. I wish they would kind of dive into this a little more on some more, not quite mainstream titles, but at least maybe like better known stuff, because this stuff is well worth the price tag. This came in, I think, at about somewhere between the $50 and $60 range for a release like this. But like I said, you get this outer box, you get a premium magnetic clasp on it, you get a book, you get the movie. We'll get into the movie really quick. I think this is a 3-disc set. So here's your slip. Here's your 4K case. Let's set that aside. We'll get into this here. What do we got here? 4K and 2 Blu-rays. So in typical fashion, you get your 4K disc, and then you get your Blu-ray that has the 4K scan on it as well. And then you get your second Blu-ray that has even more special features and all that stuff that they feature on here. So anything to cover on the back, I'll check really quick. It just kind of goes through the special features, but there's so many on here that I'd be talking for another 5-10 minutes on this stuff.
So it's loaded with extras.
Loaded. Yeah. Vinegar Syndrome does a great job. This is one of the companies that goes out and does their own production, and they pull anybody that they can track down and find, and they do interviews and other stuff for featurettes on their releases. So they're ones that really, really go above and beyond. And then I'll give you guys a quick peek at the book here. Like I said, kind of artwork, images, essays, interviews. I don't know if they got Patrick Swayze for this. Probably not, because of his passing. But yeah, tons of fun stuff in here. All kinds of information. Again, stuff you want to know about the movie. Great images in here. I really can't sing this praise much more. It's just a fantastic, phenomenal release from a boutique company that really delivers on what you pay for with what you get from them. So that's show and tell for the week. Vinegar Syndrome, Roadhouse, VSU.
That is I'm not a big Roadhouse guy. Let's hold off the hate. No one shoot me. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just not the biggest Roadhouse guy, but that is a beautiful set, man. I love the clasp cover and the way it comes down. I dig those. The fact that it's loaded with extras, the old school look on it. Like when I think if Disney would ever pull their head out of their ass and re-release American Graffiti,
Oh yeah.
Might actually not be Disney, it might be Paramount that has access to that. But if
Hmm.
one of them would, redo American Graffiti like that Roadhouse uh,
Hmm.
is done, I'd be over the moon. Like I'd be signing up day one of release. So
Yeah.
that's badass, man. I dig that a lot.
Yeah, I love their VSU releases. I have like three of them. The other one is Sidekicks, if you remember the Karate Kid ripoff from the '90s. Jonathan Brandis and Chuck Norris. They did a nice VSU for that. And then one of their more controversial was Showgirls. They did Showgirls in a VSU, similar fashion. But yeah, those releases from Vinegar are just they're great. They're top notch.
Well, man, that brings us to our final topic of tonight for of sorts. We'll briefly watch the Last Nightmare thing at the end. We don't have Braden on tonight. I think we're
Oh,
going to try to get Braden on next week or the week after. I was speaking with him today. He's super busy right now, obviously.
yeah.
So we'll touch on his at the very end, but we don't have as much time to spend on this as I would have liked. However, Dean and I did talk, and after next week's show, immediately following the conclusion of next week's show, we will have our first Patreon episode of Tonight in Haddonfield, which we will probably dive into Halloween Returns and Halloween 3D in an even deeper way during that stream. That being said, obviously it's a little hard to pit a fully produced uh, Halloween movie that made $250 million at the box office versus something that was a month away from shooting. So we're simply looking at the story
Mhm.
here. Dean, I'm going to put you on the spot, man. Are you taking Halloween 2018, The Return of Laurie Strode, 40 years later? You get the Laurie, Karen, Allison storyline. You get Hawkins. I still really like 2018,
Mhm.
but I do feel when you look back at that movie, you go, we're a little light on story here.
Yeah.
Um, where, for me, anyways, Halloween Returns, which focuses more on Hunt and his kids and the doctor's kids, or the doctor's kid, Michael escaping lethal injection execution at the prison facility.
Mhm.
Um, the film takes place mostly in Russellville. We get the tie back to Charlie Boyle or Charlie Bowles, pardon me. I just think when you look at the stories in general, it was at the time it was wonderful to go back and see Laurie, and I still think Jamie Lee Curtis's best performance in a Halloween movie is in Halloween 2018.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion. Um, but when you're looking at the story, when you're looking at what would have had the highest or the biggest impact on the future of the franchise, I gotta say my pick is Halloween Returns in terms of the story. And I know people are gonna say I'm probably nuts, but I read that script. I listened to it on Taking Shape 2, read it forever ago in Taking Shape 2. Um, and every time that I revisit the story, dude, I get more attached and also a little more upset that it didn't come to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with pretty much all those points. For me, I love 2018. 2018 lands number three in my ranking. Um, I went to see it three times in theaters to kind of really let it set in and finally come to the decision that like, okay, this is pretty well done, and I think they left the door open for a sequel, and we'll see what comes from it. We eventually get Kills and Ends to round out that trilogy, but going back and finally reading the return script for the first time to cover here. I was blown away with the script. Love the story. Love how descriptive it is. And like I said during the show last week, I'm reading this and I can picture it as if I'm watching it on screen. So, story wise, if I'm going to put the two up against one another, like I said, I love the 2018 story. It's kind of lacking in certain areas where I think Returns picks up and just runs away with it. We get way more classic Michael. You get some brutality, but you get a lot of lurking and stalking and Michael in the shadows. So it was a tough decision to kind of come to, but I would say I think Returns edges out 2018 for me, simply based off the entire story itself. You take out Laurie Strode, you take out Haddonfield, you take out Loomis, and yet you have this just really well done, grounded story that gives us classic Michael, and pretty much everything that we wanted to happen in 2018 happens here in Returns. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and agree, and I'm gonna have to pick Returns over 2018. Based off story.
Entertainment Wizard, Steve, Ross, and Alessandra all say Halloween Returns in the chat as well. Yeah, it's Returns for me. And also, one of the things Returns does, though, is we get the post-credit scene, we get the reveal of Loomis, we get the promise of something more following Loomis, essentially. And I think when you end on that kind of note, the promise for what's to come, the promise for the future, but done in sort of a subtle but also in your face way. I think it's similar to what we get at the end of Halloween 2018, where Michael's still breathing at the end of the credits. But it's not as how to put it, it's not as blatant as Halloween Returns, where that's Dr. Loomis at the end, and
Mhm.
we're getting ready to see what comes next.
Right.
Halloween Returns was the movie we should have got. Blows 2018 out of the water script wise. What up? Hope you had a good stream. Thank you. It's appreciated. John says, in Halloween Returns, did you guys like the warning message Michael wrote on the wall? So I'm glad you brought this up, because Dean and I actually talked about this, and I think we were on different sides of the fence here.
Yep.
For me, it's probably the thing I like least about the script, because it felt a little bit over the top. But then Dean had a good rebuttal. What was that rebuttal, dude?
I equated it to I can see why they went that direction, and it worked for me because I'm a big Halloween 2 fan. And it kind of goes back to Michael writing, Sam Hain on the chalkboard in the classroom. That was subtle. That was in H2. We're assuming that came from Michael because he breaks into the classroom and the knife is in the drawing. So where else would it come from? But yeah, to me that kind of worked based off of that. I think that's something that Michael would at least put out there in some sense, but maybe not to that extent. Seems a little out of character. It is a full blown message compared to one word, but it's in the wheelhouse of what we got in Halloween 2. So I was for it. It didn't really bother me that much, but I've seen that point come up where people they weren't really a fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. It's probably the thing I liked least. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, when you look at the message and the writing of the blood on the wall, specifically though who it's delivered to, I think if someone was just reading the cliff notes of like a plot for this, they'd go, "Oh well, that's just him telling Haddonfield they're never going to get over him." But the thing here is, it's not Haddonfield. It's Russellville. It's the beginning of a whole new area and time of terror. So again, I just think Halloween Returns had such crazy good potential. And, I think elements, I do think when you read that whole script, by the way, you see elements that are borrowed in David Gordon Green's, not necessarily just Halloween 2018, but his whole trilogy, where he might have nitpicked cherry picked a couple of ideas out of Halloween Returns and put them in his film, which happens all the time, not belittling him for it. But again, simply off story, I like the fact that it's a fresh cast. I like the fact that it takes place during two different periods of time. But mostly the fact that it's not your typical Halloween movie, and that they've decided to go in a different direction and bring the focus elsewhere. And at least in the script, it goes very, very well. It reads well. Whether they would have shot it well, whether it would have been acted well, those are questions we'll never have the answers to.
Right.
But simply on a surface level, I gotta say, I think I prefer Halloween Returns over Halloween 2018.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I love 2018. It gave me what I was looking for, for a long time. We had that big 9-year break between Rob Zombie 2 and then 2018. And it took a couple watches for to really catch me, but after like the third, I was finally satisfied enough to where I'm like, okay, this works. They leave the door open. You know, we'll see how they continue on it. And Returns does the same thing, but I mean, the way it read, and like I said, you know, a couple times already, I can picture it playing out on screen. And as you mentioned, would it have, you know, been shot well enough and acted well enough? We don't know. So that's one downfall that we kind of have to take into account. But on paper, it was phenomenal. So it's a shame it never got made. But if I'm comparing on paper Returns to, you know, on screen 2018, I'm still taking Returns just because the story, it went a little bit different, but it also works extremely well. So yeah, it's just such a shame that we don't get Returns as a final product.
Yeah, I mean, is there? I still say when you look at that script, obviously there needs to be a financial transaction somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, but I still think that's a movie they with some, you know, some reshaping and some touch ups that they can go back and do again. Not saying we'll ever get it, but I like the idea.
Yeah.
Um, Want to give James some love here,
Mhm.
simply because we won't get time to do like a big deep dive into what he has going on this week's episode. But if James wants to come back next week and uh, discuss his film, he can. We'll touch on it now. Halloween Aftermath is James' Halloween fan film. And Dean, if I screw up on any of this, please correct me. It is set between Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and bridges the gap between those two films. I believe it's currently live and active on Indiegogo as we speak. And also fun little connection here. James, I believe, I don't think I have the story wrong, was the one who created the mask for Braden Timmons' fan
Mhm.
film, the Haddonfield um, Nightmare, and then we have the last Nightmare coming up, part one, anyways. And I believe it was James that did that mask. So kudos to him on that. But yeah, Halloween Aftermath. I believe James can chime in the chat if he wants.
Mhm.
That it is live on Indiegogo. And again, if you're a fan of Ends, if you're a fan of Kills, if you want to know, you know, potential things that could have happened during that 4-year time gap, definitely check out James' film.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to give Braden his due, though. We said we would do this. Let's hope the stream doesn't get taken down.
Yeah.
So um, we'll see what happens here. Here it is. Haddonfield, The Last Nightmare, Part 1 from Braden Timmons. I believe this is the Indiegogo announcement trailer for him.
You guys need a ride? No, I live down the street, so I'll just walk. Sam, are you sure if it's a drive though? Yeah, I'll be fine.
Does that look like a fan film to anybody? Because to me, it sure as hell doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Nope.
And there's a couple of shots here of Michael that I just
Hmm.
absolutely adore. James, kudos to you, man, on the mask work. You know, as long as it was you. If it wasn't you, then apologize to whoever it was. But I believe I remember Braden telling. Was it Braden that told us that, or James?
I think they both might have mentioned it, or Braden might have said it to you. But I thought when James was on here, he mentioned that you know, a few months ago when we had him on, that he worked on that for Braden.
So yeah, you gotta if you're waiting for new Halloween content, you got a plethora of it coming from various different channel content creators and their coverage of the franchise. You await news on the Halloween cinematic universe, whether that be a TV series or a movie. We talked about the Steph Hutchinson connection tonight. What is he doing with the cat? Is it Halloween related? And if it is, Is it the Halloween series, or is he just going back to do more literature? So that one's out there. And then Halloween Returns versus Halloween 2018. I got to admit, man, I thought it would be more on the fence than this, but looking at our chat and given our take on it, it looks as if Halloween Returns went and squashed Halloween 2018 in this little match.
Yeah, landslide. And I think rightfully so. It's, I mean, we've talked about it up and down the board here, but it's so well written that it's not surprising to me that it kind of sweeps across the board and takes everybody's votes. I thought James did it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there's confirmation right there. James did it. It's from a screen mold that I got from Brad Harden of H6. That's badass, man. That is awesome. Anyways, though, I believe that is going to do it for our show tonight. The question is, who is working on this new Halloween project? We know Miramax obviously purchased the rights, but who are the creatives involved? When will we find out officially? I don't know. What is Steph Hutchinson working on Malacca Cad with? Is it continuations of the comics? Is it new comics? Is it an original novel? Or is Steph involved in the production of this Halloween cinematic universe? Either or, I think, would be beneficial news to the Halloween franchise. Dean, where can everybody find you at, buddy?
And you guys can all find me here weekly with Sean, either 9 or 10 p.m. start times, or somewhere in between, every Monday night on the Tonight Haddonfield. You can also find me on Facebook in the Legacy of Halloween group, and on Facebook at Dean Renner. And one last little tidbit I want to throw in here. I just want to thank everybody that came out last Tuesday and supported our episode and has tuned in live every week and continues to kind of come back. Our pop-up stream from last Tuesday has broke 1,000 views, which for me was really something I wasn't expecting. So just a quick thank you to everybody that tunes in every week and continues to watch and gives myself and Sean a reason to come back and do this every week. So thank you to all our viewers.
Absolutely, man. I tried to make a post yesterday on the Legacy of Halloween Facebook group, which, by the way, you can all go out and check out. If you're looking for one of those Halloween groups that just agrees with everything Halloween and gives everything a gold star, probably not that Halloween group for you. But if you're open to being objective and discussing the franchise that you love, then maybe it's a good fit. The Legacy of Halloween on Facebook. But I just want to say, big thanks to everybody. Look, this is a new show, and as the guy that created this channel years ago, I'll be the first guy that sits here and admits that over the course of the last year, the channel's been a little bit volatile and inconsistent at times, trying to find its new direction. I think we've started to get into a groove here by assigning Monday nights, essentially, anyways, as Halloween and horror nights, with tonight in Haddonfield, Tuesday nights are Star Wars, and Wednesdays a little bit of everything and goofing around. And so you can check all that out on the channel. But honestly, without all of you, without our patrons, without our channel sponsors, we wouldn't be here. So honestly, thank you. And even if you can't contribute financially, then something as simple as clicking the like button, subscribe, and slashing the notification bell, sharing the stream even. If you have other Halloween fans that you don't think have heard of the channel, definitely check it out. Our Halloween content coverage will be continuing endlessly, not just throughout this year, but next year and years to come, simply because we're in a time where, there is more Halloween in pre-production, and that means there's more content to make, right? So we'll cover it as closely as we can and as accurately as we can. But with all you, there's not really a point to do this. So a big thank you to all you. And James says, thanks for everything, guys. Your Halloween coverage is always a great thing for the community. Well, I wish more people felt the way that you do. On behalf of Dean and everybody else at Fandom Empire, thank you. Have a great night, great rest of your week. Maybe we'll be back with a pop-up stream and breaking news.
Yeah.
You never know what the week brings. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. And don't forget, the Boogeyman is coming.